right, folks, we are here and we are ready to go with the latest edition of College Basketball Coast to Coast on a Sunday night recap live on all the platforms, YouTube as well as Facebook, the CBB Coast to Coast Twitter handle, my Twitter handle at Buck Sideline Guy. Thank you for finding us however you found us, including in podcast form after the fact. If you're only hearing us, this was live on Sunday night after we have watched another wild day. A lot of favorites winning, and then a tremendous buzzer beater, our first one of the tournament that we have to go over. I am merely TJ Rives. I've got my main wingman, Jason Powers, with me. Full disclosure, you and I were together earlier this evening having a little food. Now we're watching all of this unfold tonight. After that, how you feeling on a Sunday where Florida and Duke and Alabama and Michigan State have all advanced, but we've had some other excitement as well. How you feeling, Jason?
We finally have a buzzer beater, two game-winning shots in the last 10 seconds. What a game between Maryland and your
Colorado
boys.
State.
Yes, your Colorado State Rams. So great for the tournament that we finally had one of those. And a little controversy. Was it a travel? Was it not a travel?
Oh, please.
Getting some
Cut
play
from
on
the
Twitter.
foul line to the baseline without a dribble. But Derek Queen will take it, and Maryland will take it. Fear the Turtle. They advance on in the Sweet 16, and you're right. We saw other craziness.
Florida escapes.
Florida down the stretch, able to win. Duke rolling. Alabama had to battle St. Mary's, but eventually outlasted them. And Michigan State, trailing the whole first half, comes back and wins big tonight. So anyway, thank you for finding us. Adam Zagoria, our insider, will have more on the UConn to the two-time defending champions' reign at the hands of Florida today. Adam was also in the arena for St. John's going down to defeat. It ain't good to be the Big East right now. Adam will have more, but Jason, they're out of teams. It's over after one weekend of games. Also, my man Ari Russell, another wingman of mine, will be here a little later on in the program to give some wisdom and some insight on all the action that we've seen on Sunday, Saturday, and looking ahead to the Sweet 16. So, Jason, let's you and I get into it a little bit here with what we saw. Let's start with Duke. I mean, my goodness, they looked awesome again here today. Pulling away from Baylor without Cooper Flagg having a monster game. Tyrese Proctor scored a bunch. Their other players, their other pieces scored a bunch. Multiple players in double figures. Baylor, no real match. Duke in the Sweet 16, no real surprise. More on that, please.
Yeah, just again, ho-hum, give them credit. They'd beaten. I mean, Baylor wasn't going to beat them. I mean, they're not the team that they were a couple years ago. But give Duke all the credit. They've emphatically put their stamp on this tournament that they might be the favorite now. A lot of people thought Florida, maybe Auburn, but Duke. I think if you through two rounds, Duke has probably been the most impressive one seed, I think, that we've seen. And you're right, they've worked Cooper Flagg working his way back into the tournament. As far as we think he's pretty healthy and all that, he doesn't have to score 25 for this team to be dominant, and he did it again today. Passed the ball, excellent passer. You mentioned Proctor's playing well. They got some size. Again, they're still missing one of their guys with the shoulder injury, but boy, they look strong through two rounds.
A lot of depth. Sion James, Malawatch underneath, Kneppel, the other freshman guard, along with Proctor and Flagg. John Shire, credit for them. They got to the Elite Eight last year. Now they're back in the Sweet 16. So Duke is a big story. We're awaiting their opponent. The final piece to the puzzle on the Sweet 16 is Oregon and Arizona playing right now live as we speak here and unveil the Sunday night recap show. That is a 4-point game, a game that Oregon led 18-4 out in Seattle. Meantime, Arizona totally flipped the script, Jason. They were leading by 10, but Oregon has just cut it to 4, and they're now going to the foul line to shoot a couple of free throws with 7.5 to go. So the winner gets Duke in Newark. The winner's got to come all the way from Seattle to Newark to play later this week in the Sweet 16. We'll update you on that final. Again, here as we do this live on all the platforms, we're in the Sunshine State. There's a lot of crowing for the Florida Gator fans. And ding dong, the defending two-time national champion UConn Huskies are dead. Florida took them out today in a close game, a game that UConn had the lead in, but Florida behind Walter Clayton with a couple of big threes. some big-time defense. Say some more about the Gators as the 1 seed in the West beating UConn.
Well, the Gators did everything they could to keep UConn in the game, especially they were terrible at the foul line in the second half, missed a ton of free throws. UConn got the game at a much slower pace than Florida likes to play, but give Florida credit. Clayton made 2 huge 3-point shots from kind of the right, not the corner, but the right mid right corner of the 3-point line, kind of off balance, 2 in a row, looked like the exact same shot, same play they ran. That's why he's an All-American. Again, that's why we think they can get to the Final Four because of the guard play. But give Florida credit. They locked down enough on defense, and they ended the run of UConn.
Again, for Todd Golden, the coach, we shouldn't overlook this. Embattled at the beginning of the year with a Title IX investigation with multiple female students accusing him of cyber stalking and stalking them in person. They did not file criminal charges. They went through Title IX through the university since they're students, several of them, and he's a university employee. That whole thing basically got swept under the rug. He got cleared back in December? January-ish. And now Florida has gone on to win the SEC tournament, be a top seed, and now they're headed back to San Francisco, where he was the University of San Francisco coach for several years and had them in the NCAA tournament. So Florida is the 1 seed to now play Maryland. And while we're recapping here on this Sweet 16 edition on a Sunday night, there's our first buzzer beater as Derek Queen, the freshman. How many steps did he take hitting the game-winning shot off the glass down 1 after Colorado State had hit the 3 to go ahead in the final 5 seconds? Maryland got to midcourt, called timeout, got the ball into Queen. He dribbled once or twice. He took a step and another step and another step and put it up, and it went in off the glass. There's our first buzzer beater, and Maryland now advances to play Florida.
And the irony here is Maryland has lost, I think, their last 4 games. 3 of the last 4 games they've lost have been on buzzer beaters the other way. They lost, I think, Northwestern, Michigan, Michigan State. So they've been on the other end of 3 buzzer beaters against them, and they finally get one. Again, controversy. Did he travel? I didn't like that CBS, Clark, Kenny, and Barkley were like, no, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even debatable whether he traveled. I was like, come on, guys. This ain't the NBA, boys.
Right. Especially when he picks the dribble up and takes 3 more steps. But, hey, it counts. Maryland and Kevin Willard will take it as they go into the Sweet 16, and that helps the Big Ten, which already had Michigan and Purdue in the Sweet 16 going into tonight. Now Maryland gets there. Michigan State gets there tonight, so the Big Ten does put some teams into the Sweet 16 by virtue of that win this evening. And, again, Maryland has been hot. I said this last night. I believe that is 15 of their last 17 they've won. They lost to Michigan, like you mentioned, in the Big Ten tournament, but they have been rolling at the end of the year. Good guard play. Willard's an experienced coach, but he does not have a lot of March success in the NCAA tournament, but he now is in the Sweet 16 with the Terrapins in that win tonight. Anything else on that?
No, just again, this is a team that can match up with Florida. They got some size. They got good guard play. This will be a very, very, very good Sweet 16 game, I think.
All right, and real quick, we watched Alabama together. Just I put it as imposes their will on St. Mary's. This game fundamentally came down to Alabama wanting to play fast and St. Mary's not being able to slow it down. And the 3-point shot, where at one point in the game, Alabama had made 8 of them and St. Mary's had made none of them. And when you're plus 24 in the 3-point stripe, that's very tough to overcome. They couldn't overcome it. And a third straight Sweet 16 for Nate Oates and Alabama, Jason.
And St. Mary's just doesn't have the firepower offensively to keep up in these kind of games. I mean, if the game gets above 65-70, they're against good teams. They can do it in the WCC more likely with the offensive opportunities. But when you're playing really good teams, they just struggle to score. They don't have enough elite athletes. They got good big men, but they don't have enough elite guard play small forwards that can create their own shots.
And again, for Alabama, so many versatile big players that can come out on the perimeter, take you off the dribble. A couple of them can hit threes. They're deep. Sears, the guard, leads them. He led them to the Final Four last year. So Alabama will now play BYU. I know later in the show you're going to preach about BYU in this upset spot. That game is coming up in Newark. Again, we await the winner of Arizona and Oregon for the other piece in Newark to play Duke, but Alabama is there. Alabama, by the way, of 7 SEC teams that made the Sweet 16. Yep. How about that? That's a record. Some would argue, well, if you get 14 in, you should be able to get 7 in the Sweet 16. But look, the year that the Big East got 11 in the tournament, they only got 2 in the Sweet 16 that year. There's been a recent year where the ACC got 9 in the Sweet 16. I'm sorry, 9 in the tournament, and they only got 3 in the Sweet 16. So it's not a given just with volume of teams, but the SEC puts 4 more in on this Sunday with Florida and Kentucky and Alabama and Ole Miss tonight, which bopped Iowa State. So the SEC gets to flex a little bit, Jason.
And I would say you could make an argument the most impressive team of the SEC through 2 rounds has been Ole Miss. They destroyed Iowa State tonight.
Yep.
They destroyed North Carolina for the most part. Chris Beard laying in the weeds as a 6 seed, and he's got Michigan State coming up with Izzo. To me, they have been ultra impressive through 2 rounds.
All right. Again, we're covering a lot tonight on college basketball coast to coast. Thank you for finding us live, YouTube, social media through Facebook, through Twitter X. Let's go to a conversation I had just before our show began earlier this evening with our insider, Adam Zagoria, who was right there for the St. John's upset loss. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Florida beating UConn today. Some thoughts from him on Duke, who he's covered all year long. Duke now coming to Newark, where Adam is in the New York, New Jersey area. We go to that conversation right now on college basketball coast to coast with our insider. As promised, he's been busy because he's been in Providence covering Arkansas's upset of St. John's. He's been monitoring down in Raleigh, the Florida win over UConn, the Duke win over Baylor. Hello, Adam Zagoria, NJ.com and the Zags Blog, back with us on college basketball coast to coast. My goodness, tons to talk about. Welcome. It's been about 24 hours. Have we still figured out how Arkansas, first of all, with St. John's? Welcome in.
Yeah, good to be with you, TJ. Yeah, I was there for that game. It's tough for Rick Pitino and St. John's. They did not play their best in that game. I mean, obviously, Arkansas had a lot to do with that, but Kadari got in foul trouble, fouled out. R.J. Lewis was 3 of 17, and Rick put him on the bench for the final few minutes. And it's just, very tough for them to win a game with Kadari and R.J. Lewis on the bench, down the stretch. I thought the Arkansas freshmen, I wrote about this on NJ.com, played very well. I mean, Billy Richmond had 16. Boogie Flan played well. Carter Knox. DJ Wagner, who was only a sophomore from up here in Camden, New Jersey, played well. So, there's a lot of talk about how you can't win with freshmen in college basketball now unless they're Cooper Flag. But, Arkansas and Cal here in the Sweet 16 with a bunch of young players. And how about this? Both Arkansas with Cal and Mark Pope in Kentucky, both in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, how about that? And just say again, for Calipari, this isn't everything, but to start 0-5 in the SEC, win some games at the end, and now get them in the Sweet 16 when he hadn't gotten to the second weekend at Kentucky the last 3 years. Say something about that just as a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kentucky under Cal, TJ, lost in the first round in 2 of the last 3 years, to Oakland last year and then to my man Shaheen Holloway in St. Peter's in 2022. And, he kind of beat the posse out of Lexington because the fans were unhappy with these early exits. And there was a lot of, turnover on the roster, one and dones that weren't winning. He goes to Arkansas. He gets a couple of guys to follow him from Kentucky, gets a couple of the freshmen. And how about this? He beat, this year, he beat Mark Pope and Kentucky. He beat Bill Self and Kansas. And now he beats Rick Pitino and St. John's. That's pretty good.
Yep. And now they got Texas Tech coming up in the next matchup in the West regional for San Francisco. All right. Let's move on to Sunday. Florida, the top seed with UConn. You followed UConn and Danny Hurley now for these back-to-back national titles. We've been together at the Final Four for them. They won the opening round game with Oklahoma. They were valiant. They were winning a lot of the game with Florida, but Florida with Walter Clayton and the big shots, and Florida really out executing UConn in the final 4 minutes, took it from them. That's what I perceived. What did you think about the end of that game in Raleigh?
Yeah, I mean, UConn, got the game at a tempo they wanted. It was 31 all at the half, and that kind of tempo favored them. I think they were up 61-58, and then Florida went on a big run. Walter Clayton, a Iona transfer who played for Rick Pitino at Iona, couple big threes. They hit the free throws down the stretch. I think everybody thought Florida was the better team going in. They're among the favorites to win the title. UConn had kind of a puncher's chance if they kept it at their pace. But I think everyone understands that this UConn team is not the same team from last year or the year before. This Florida team is kind of reminiscent of UConn from a year ago. They have two of everything. They're kind of like Noah's Ark, as my man Seth Greenberg likes to say. And I saw some comments from Danny that, he's looking forward to a normal offseason where he doesn't have to, ring the bell exchange and throw out the first pitch at Yankees and Mets games, Red Sox games. So they're going to, hit the portal and they'll lose some guys to the NBA and to graduation and they'll be back.
Yeah, and one other thing. I mean, he's kind of a villain, but they've been really good. But there were just as many people rooting for them to get knocked off after this. It's not bad. I mean, it's not bland. It's not bad to have the back and forth and the love-hate with UConn and Hurley, right? Just real quick.
Yeah, I mean, look, also we got to point out the Big East is done now. All five Big East teams are out. Rick Pitino and Dan Hurley are both great for college basketball. A lot of people love them. A lot of people hate them. They're outspoken. They say what's on their mind. They had a rivalry, and it's too bad for me and the reporters that they're both out.
But for what we do, it's great. It's great for the interest, the villain aspect. We love some of that. Let's move on to what Duke did to Baylor today. I'm saying this as a theme. It's not everything. They're not invincible. But that version of Duke, I don't care if it's Auburn, Adam, I don't care if it's Houston. They're going to be tough to beat, are they not, with what we saw in Raleigh?
I tell you, I'm in a couple brackets with my college buddies and my high school buddies, and I have Duke beating Florida in the final. I mean, how about Tyrese Proctor today? I think he had 25 or so. He had 5 threes, I think. I was a little worried Cooper Flagg got poked in the eye there early on in the game. Tracy Wolfson reported he had blood coming out of his eye. And this poor kid, he's had a leg injury, but he have an ankle, and then he had a couple eyes. So I was a little worried about him. Sorry, I'm telling people to stop texting me.
It's okay.
He was
he's been injured, he's been nicked up. He wasn't great today. He was pretty good, and it didn't matter. They still won easily, just to finish up.
Yeah, no, I was a little worried about him because people need to see this kid in full bloom in the tournament, and now they're going to, advance here and play Oregon or Arizona. But yeah, Duke is for real, and they have a lot of weapons, and Cooper Flagg is, he leads them in every offensive and defensive category. He makes them better in so many ways, but they have a lot of other weapons. Con Knipple, Tyrese Proctor, Sion James played well. So, they have all the makings of a team that can win it.
Love it. And Duke obviously coming to Newark, and Adam's going to be covering it for NJ.com. And by the way, you're all over the coaching carousel where it looks like Sean Miller's going to end up at Texas very quickly. Rodney Terry gone, Sean Miller to Texas. The Villanova job still open as we talk on this Sunday night. The carousel is going to be wild the next day or 2 or 3.
I mean,
yes,
I think the takeaway here is that all these coaches have been talking to these schools or their representatives, their agents, been talking to these schools for weeks. I had somebody text me today that the Sean Miller thing's been done for, a week or 2. That means, while he was coaching at Xavier, it was done. The Will Wade thing has been done at NC State. While he was coaching at McNeese State. And, to their credit, they got those schools to the tournament. And, Will Wade was very honest and straightforward with us in Providence. People said, have your representatives been talking to NC State? He said, yes. And then he said he's open with his players about it, and his players want to go Power 5, and maybe some of them could follow him. It wouldn't be a surprise if some of those McNeese State kids followed him to NC State.
Right.
But everybody who's out there, with their panties in an uproar about players transferring and there's no loyalty from the players, you need to take a look at these coaches who are negotiating with other schools during the tournament, during their conference tournaments. And then as soon as they're done, they sign and the press release comes out. If you think overnight, you're mistaken. It's been going on for weeks.
Well said. Preach on. All right, listen, we'll keep reading you, NJ.com, the Zags blog, Reload. You're going to be covering things in Newark for the Sweet 16. We'll catch up with you later this week on college basketball coast to coast. Thank you, Adam, on a Sunday night.
Appreciate you, my brother. We'll catch you down the road. Enjoy the hoops.
Love the insight there from Adam on all fronts, including the coaching carousel. Do you have a quick comment on that part of it? It is kind of a sleaze factor. Had Rodney Terry cleaned his office out yet on Sunday or Saturday? And now Sean Miller is apparently already the coach, like as of tonight in Texas.
It's, you and I were debating would Texas pull the trigger, and I thought they eventually would.
Yep.
You weren't sure. I mean, to me, money to the University of Texas is like a quarter to me and you. They're not afraid to write the check to get the guy who they don't think's the guy out of there. But yeah, I mean, Sean Miller a little bit, and I know he was in the running the last time when they hired Terry. So obviously there's some familiarity there. It'd be interesting to see if he's going to be a good fit in Texas. I mean, the Big 12, who knows? But the Villanova job, that's the one that's kind of been quiet. I'm surprised there hasn't been a move on that job, because you made a great point. What, the transfer portal opens tonight at midnight?
Apparently at midnight tonight. It's now going to open in a few minutes as we do this live. And so apparently Kevin Willard is the front runner to leave Maryland and go to Villanova. He was at Seton Hall in the Big East.
Is that a better job?
That's a great question at this point.
I don't think it is.
If he doesn't think he has enough from the NIL to help him continue to compete in the Big Ten, I don't know. But the coaching carousel, definitely interesting. Our man Ari Russell is on deck in a moment or two. By the way, the Oregon-Arizona game ongoing at last check. Arizona is up 7 with about 2 minutes left. This is the final piece on a Sunday night, Jason, for the winner to get Duke in the East Regional. These teams playing in Seattle, their old Pac-12 foes. This year, the Pac-12 disintegrated. Oregon went to the Big Ten. Arizona went to the Big 12. And Arizona, again, was down 18-4 to begin the game. What a rally for them as they look to put the finishing touches and go to the Sweet 16 themselves if they can. We'll keep you up to date.
And they're involved in a part of the game I know you love, an official's review.
Yes, there have been a few reviews. Who was on this show? Was it last night or what night was it where you were complimenting the refs on the fewer reviews and not taking as long? And now they've averaged it out. Now they've more than made up with it tonight, over and over and over again, looking at things for 3 minutes to put 1/10 of a second back on the clock. It's crazy what's going on with that. Again, we're live on college basketball coast to coast. Do you have something else with that, with the refs?
Quick comment related to something Adam Zagoria and you were talking about Danny Hurley.
Yes.
Is somebody nationally or a coach, somebody going to call this guy out? He puts on a sob story on CBS crying, and then you send me video where he is dog cussing the officials about how they got cheated walking down the hallway, talking to the Baylor team as the Baylor team is walking out.
Don't go on the floor, right?
Don't get effing cheated like we just did by these effing officials. At some point, is somebody in the coaching profession, and
the coaching profession won't do it, but I mean, there should be some people that are on those studio sets, like Charles Barkley, who's bulletproof, somebody like Jay Billis, who's bulletproof, to bring it up and say
unacceptable, man,
that there's a certain way to behave. Again, as I said to Adam, the evil thing, the villain thing, it helps some. But there are a lot of people that are glad that Danny Hurley won't be on a sideline the rest of March for this year. CBS is going to put him on TV. They're going to put him on the studio watch. Turner, CBS, stand by. Hurley will probably do it.
And I got a tip for you.
Yeah.
Something close to your heart. How about your father? How about Bob Hurley Sr.? How about you step in and say, hey, Danny, it's okay to be competitive, but when you act like an absolute clown to the officials, but you want the sympathy that you're such a good guy where you love your teammates, you love your staff, Come on, man.
Hey, in fairness, though, it's been 3 or 4 years since he's done the losing press conference in March. He hadn't had a lot of practice on being able to deal with, we lost.
It's okay to lose, but don't accuse the referees of cheating you.
Well, right. It wasn't the refs. It was Walter Clayton that was making all of those shots. While we have a moment, let's tell you about our friends at Ticket Smarter and the Ticket Smarter mobile app. Again, if you're looking to go to any of these games coming with the Sweet 16, whether it is Newark, it's going to be bonkers with Duke in Newark. It's going to be bonkers in Atlanta with Auburn there. Indianapolis has Purdue there. San Francisco, I'm not so sure with Florida, Maryland, Arkansas, and Texas Tech. Good luck. But still, those are programs that will probably have some fans out there. Use Ticket Smarter, the Ticket Smarter mobile app. They're a proud sponsor of what we do on college basketball coast to coast. Their algorithm is tremendous. You're going to get the best prices on the secondary market. Compare, shop around. I'll name some of the other ones that are out there like StubHub, Vivid Seats, et cetera, even Ticketmaster. Go check it out on the secondary market with Ticket Smarter. Use our promo code COAST20. Take $20 off your order of $300 or more. Jason, we talk about this all the time. You aren't going to get the better seats at the Prudential Center in Newark, courtside, or in the lower level in Atlanta at the State Farm Arena where the Hawks play. For anything under $300, use the promo code COAST20. Take $20 off your order with the promo code. Again, your purchase safe and secure. It takes about 5 minutes for you to sign up, make your purchase, and use that promo code, maybe even 3 minutes, depending on how fast you move. Use Ticket Smarter mobile app. We recommend it as a proud sponsor of college basketball coast to coast here
Huge
on
play
the program.
In this Oregon game. 2 missed free throws by Arizona in a 4-point game, and Biddles, the big man, cannot secure the rebound on the second miss. Out of bounds off of Oregon. Biddles, Arizona retains possession after 2 missed free throws, up 4 with about 1:15 left.
But guess what? They've been reviewing it for about 2 minutes with 1:19 left on who's the ball off of. We got to legislate this on how many times you go to the monitor and how long you spend there, because that's another big component. Is there is no oversight on these referees can stand there for 3 or 4 minutes, and they stand there for 2 or 3 minutes talking about what to do, and then they go back to the monitor. For God's sake.
Right.
For 30, 40 years, we lived with the call. It's painful. You know who's not painful, who I enjoy? My wingman, Ari Russell. I do my best to make a segue.
Love Ari.
Ari is back aboard here on college basketball coast to coast on a Sunday night. Please bring some sanity and some civility back to what we do here on the program. How are you, my friend? Final piece to the puzzle is this Oregon-Arizona game that we're all watching. Duke impressive today. Florida impressive today. Where do you want to go first? Welcome.
Well, first, Biddle kind of looks like a substitute science teacher.
Yes.
I was like, wow, this guy, he's like 106. Meanwhile, Caleb Love has been at Arizona. He was at North Carolina before. I think he's been playing college basketball since the New Deal. So, I don't know. Great game, by the way, by Love so far. Unbelievable. And it'll be interesting if they hold on in this game. He played against Duke. He was at North Carolina. So, but he's having a great game. This is kind of a low basketball IQ game, very athleticism, but a lot of really bad basketball plays happening in this game. Bonehead kind of turnovers and just not boxing out. In fact, Arizona just had an oop where it seemed like the whole team tried to go up for the oop. It's just like, come on now. It's an exciting game, but it's like, man, it seems like neither team wants to win this one.
All right. We'll keep an eye on Oregon and Arizona in the final minute here as the final piece to the puzzle as we do this live on college basketball.
2-point game, by the way. 2-point game.
Yeah, Biddle just hit a hook shot to make it a 2-point game. Nail biter. Winner gets Duke. Again, these used to be Pac-12 rivals for so many years. Now they're in different conferences. This is the first year of it. And we should emphasize again, can't overemphasize, Oregon got out 18-4 the game, and Arizona at one point led by 10. So that is my public school education, my Florida public school education throughout high school tells me that's over a 24-point swing.
28.
28 at one point. 24, were they up 14? They were up 14.
24.
Earlier in the game. Wow. All right. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Ari, big picture, give me a couple of things from today. Where you want to go with Duke or Florida, Michigan State tonight in Cleveland, outlasting New Mexico. Where you want to go?
Well, I'll go with Michigan. I'll start with Michigan State. Impressive win. New Mexico, obviously is a tough opponent. I think matchup wise, obviously really good guard play. And Michigan State was able to win this game. That wasn't a handling win in the game, but they did shut it down, with about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, really took control over it. And that's without Jace Richardson scoring a single field goal until I think like the last 90 seconds of that game. Didn't have a point until about 90 seconds in that game, which all came off of free throws when he was fouled on a 3-point shot. So the fact that Michigan State was able to actually handle their business against a very formidable New Mexico team, very well coached New Mexico team, without their star freshman in Jace Richardson, of really contributing offensively, at least from a scoring standpoint. He was still effective in delivering and moving the ball around and what have you. But it just shows you that Michigan State has a lot going on. They're a very good basketball team. Very well coached, obviously.
That's a game. Can I interject? That's a game where they fell behind 7-0. They're behind by 12 points or 13 points in the first half. But I never got the sense watching it, especially as the second half went on, that they were going to unravel. I really thought this is a team that's well coached, that defends, that rebounds. They got guys that can make shots. I never felt like New Mexico is going to be the winning side here. It's easy to say after the fact. What did you think watching it?
That's exactly how I felt. They just the tempo of the game was always to their advantage. They were getting all the 50-50 balls. They were boxing out on the rebounds. I mean, the fundamental aspects of it, not turning the ball over, executing on turnovers. So they're doing everything that a team that is in control of a ball game and you can see is poised does to win and close out a game. And Michigan State did that today. I thought that was as impressive of a closeout as we have seen. Not like a dominating win, but a tough, gritty game and closing it out. That's what good teams and great teams do in the tournament.
All right. Michigan State won the regular season in the Big Ten. Now they're in the Sweet 16 for the upteenth time under Tom Izzo. He's got 9 Final Four appearances, so just stand by for that. Jason, give us an update on Oregon and Arizona. Give us the update late in that game. That's the one game still going on.
Back to Ari Russell's low IQ game. We just had another turnover by Arizona on an inbounds play with about 50 seconds left, and we have another review going on, TJ. The ball clearly went off the Arizona player. What are we even doing here? Not even close. Should be Oregon. So it's going to be Oregon ball down 2 with about 50 seconds left. So plenty of time left. Oregon doesn't have a timeout left. We'll keep you up to date on what happens as we do that live here tonight at the end of this one. Craziness at the end. Ari, talk to me about Kentucky today.
Yes. Okay. First off, I mean, the job that Mark Pope has done with this team has been remarkable. That was an absolute clinic that they put on both sides of the ball, but defensively just really strangling and making it very difficult for Illinois. Kentucky is a dangerous team now. They have that defensive mindset. They really got out today and they really forced Illinois into very uncomfortable situations, made them really kind of force shots that they're not used to doing, put a lot of pressure in the perimeter, and just out-rebounded them. And Williams, my gosh, man, no one talks about that guy. That guy is a superstar. I mean, he is all over the court on both ends. Great passer, too. It just a team that was playing at a very high level today, dominated every aspect of the game and really beat down Illinois going away. With that, and Illinois is a formidable opponent with lottery pick on their side of the ball, so and a bunch of other shooters and some size, and Kentucky just really dominated that game pretty much from the onset.
And how about the next one up with Tennessee? They've beaten Tennessee twice already this year, so Rick Barnes has got all the motivation he needs to get his guys ready, and all SEC Sweet 16.
That's gonna be a great one. Tennessee has a lot of experience on that team. The guys that and a lot of depth, a lot of guys that can kill you. Lanier is obviously, I think Lanier passed Chris Lofton as their all-time 3-point shooting, which is pretty remarkable because Chris Lofton made a lot of three-pointers.
That's all he did was shoot 3-pointers. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you got Ziegler, who's a phenomenal point guard and floor general there. This is going to be a fun game. Again, like you said, Kentucky had their number. So this is what we want. We wanted to see these types of games. The SEC definitely flexed their muscle, and this is one of those matchups that we kind of expected going into the tournament.
Love Ari Russell's insight. We're watching the end of Oregon and Arizona. We'll keep you up to date on what happens with Oregon down 2 in the final seconds in Seattle. Oregon has missed a shot in the lane, and Arizona's gotten the rebound with about 25 seconds left. Not a very good look, and it was a brick off the backboard. Oregon's had their chances at the end of this game, and it's still not over yet. Again, I keep saying this is the final piece of the Sweet 16 of the 16 games being played this weekend. The final one going on. It's in Seattle tonight. The winner gets Duke in Newark. Back to the SEC and the follow-up. Again, a Florida win today, an Alabama win tonight, an Ole Miss win tonight, a Kentucky win tonight. That's 7 teams that make the Sweet 16. For all the talk about maybe the SEC wasn't as good, so far it looks that good. Jason, a thought? Ari, a thought real quick?
You go, Ari. I've impressed. They are going to be flexing their chest down here in the South where we are.
Yep.
They are going to be flexing their chests with the SEC.
I mean, honestly, I think maybe they got 1 or 2 too many teams in, but that's still that didn't stop these 7 teams to advance to the Sweet 16. Right. So the strength of this conference is legit. I mean, we knew that going into it. I know that people are, what do you expect all 14 teams to advance? That's not going to happen. That's just that happened with the Big Ten. I think they won their first, or they started 8-0. But again, a lot of teams fell from the Big Ten, but 7 is impressive, but that's kind of the expectation that the conference was going in. That's half the amount of teams making it to the second weekend that entered the tournament. So that's an impressive showing and more than successful than and I think beyond the expectations. I think maybe 5 or 6 would have been something, but 7, yeah.
I'm with you. Let me interject that Arizona's at the foul line in this game as we do this live. We can do like pseudo play-by-play. They've made 1 of the 2 free throws to go up by 3 on Oregon. Still 21 seconds left. Oregon doesn't have a timeout. The second foul shot is no good. So Oregon can tie the game with a 3. We'll keep you up to date on what happens as we watch all of this unfold live on College Basketball Coast to Coast with the final game of the night. Oregon actually elects to lay it in with 10 seconds left without a timeout, now down 1, and they're going to have to either steal or foul in the final seconds here. What a battle in Seattle for the final game. Are we headed for another buzzer beater as Arizona gets the timeout? The previous game on the floor tonight, guys, was a buzzer beater. Maryland beating Colorado State. Ari, say something about that finish. You spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and in and around that, being from the D.C. area, and fear the turtle tonight as Derek Queen is the hero. How many steps did he take, Coach Ari Russell?
I mean, I watched it in real time. I didn't really get the sense. He is 6'10", 6'11", so it did look like he took that Euro step, whatever that is.
The Euro step, as I like to say, that was the Euro-Asia and maybe Australasia
the
step.
Eurasian step.
Yeah.
so whatever it was, I mean, that was.
You have the young lady Bronxy, who's a preschooler, who's a toddler. She likes to watch Sesame Street. Remember, we always had the count that looked like Dracula, and he would count to teach you to count. He should be going ha ha ha, 1 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. How many steps for Derek Queen? It doesn't matter. He's the hero. He's the hero.
No, that was that was a phenomenal play call. Apparently, Queen went into and said, "Give me the M&F and ball." And he's never actually hit the shot. He's never hit a buzzer beater in his entire life. And Coach Willard said, "If I would have known that, I may not have drawn up the play." But it just a tremendous. You give the ball to your best player. And Queen was the freshman of the year and the big the Big Ten, and you give the ball to your guy, and he didn't have a great game, but you put him at the ball. It was a well defended play. You couldn't
very
defend that
well,
play.
very well.
And he just, and that's a very difficult shot. I mean, that's a Tim Duncan type shot off the glass.
Left, and he's going completely away from the basket. Left.
That was a remark. I mean, finally we got one. We got one like that. A freshman coming in. So again, freshman on the big stage. Cooper Flagg, but Derek Queen. Right there. So it's going to be fun to see him against the Florida Bigs because he's a problem.
Again, they have won 11 of their last 13 with that win. All right, so back to the Oregon-Arizona game. After Oregon hit the layup, they fouled Arizona, and they've made both free throws. Now Oregon, without a timeout in the final 10 seconds, is down by 3. We'll keep you up to date on what happens here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. On the very end,
Arizona fouls, intentionally fouls.
And that's the smart play to make here with only a few seconds remaining, up 3. Don't even let them get a chance to go and tie it. We've seen that fundamental strategy over and over again.
What's the aftermath of Rick Pitino sitting R.J. Lewis down up? You're up in the New York area. What's the fallout up there?
It's not really much fallout. I mean, everybody is really saying, at the end of the day, he didn't show up, and I think that his brain was fried, and so you couldn't have him on defense. He was getting waxed on defense the whole game, basically, and you could tell that the offensive performance played into his effort on the defensive side. So from Pitino making the call, you're looking at it, you're like, well, that's your best player, but he was actually at that point, I think, a detriment to them on both sides of the ball, and they couldn't afford that. They needed the stops. Also, one of the things that people aren't talking about is that he's used to being complement with Kadari Richmond, but Kadari Richmond only played 16 minutes because he was in foul trouble. So they're not able to play off of each other well, especially on both sides of the ball. They're kind of like a very good two-man. They play a lot of two-man teams, and they open up a lot in the lane, but Richmond didn't have any flow in that game. And so I think from a complementary standpoint, neither did R.J. Lewis. And he just wasn't able to step up in that situation with Richmond on the bench for so long. And I think that Pitino is just like, look, this guy is shot. I got to put guys that aren't shot at this point that are going to be at least trying to defend on defense and that our head is completely in the game. There's a couple of things that I thought that they didn't dump it into Ejiofor a little bit more, especially when the big guy had 4 fouls for Arkansas for like the whole time. And Ejiofor was really dominant down in the paint. Part of that has to do with the length of Arkansas and the ability to actually get it inside. And they weren't able to really get the ball inside. And primarily a lot of that was because you didn't have Richmond there to be able to get into the lane to open up a little bit more space for Ejiofor to get it in the post.
Great win, obviously, for Arkansas. Again, we monitored the end of Oregon and Arizona. Arizona elected to foul. Oregon did make the 2 free throws to cut it to 1. They could not get a steal on the inbound, so they immediately fouled Arizona with 5 seconds left. Down 1. Arizona at the foul line has made the first of 2. And if they don't make the second of 2, a 2 would tie, a 3 would win. And do they foul again strategically here at the end for Oregon and Arizona? What drama. What drama at the end of this game with the former Pac-12 rivals playing each other now in separate conferences. Arizona 4 for 4 on the foul line in the final 10 seconds. So
did they foul him with 3?
Yep, and so you're a little ahead of me. So they got the foul again at midcourt, correct? Did not even let them get across midcourt to try the tying 3. That's the strategy for Tommy Lloyd and Arizona, which are seconds away from being in the Sweet 16. If they get there, that would be that we play Duke. That would be the 4th Big 12 team that's there. Texas Tech is the only traditional one. Houston's a newer member 2 years ago. BYU a newer member 2 years ago, and Arizona's a new member this year, all trying to be in the Sweet 16 if Arizona can finish it off. So we'll see what happens here.
All right, give me a thought about Michigan and their big men. The big men has kind of gotten taken out of the college game, but Michigan's got 2 skilled big men. It's going to be a formidable matchup for Janai Broome, Bruce Pearl and company in Atlanta.
That with Wolf and Golden obviously is another player from FIU. There's a lot of guys from FIU that are playing in the second weekend.
FAU, Florida Atlantic, right.
FAU. What did I say?
Correct.
FIU, FAU.
Correct.
FIU is down in Miami. FAU is in Boca Raton. So, what Golden and his game is really impressive.
Yes.
As far as how he's improved
Yep.
over the years. When he first came in, he had hands of stone and his footwork wasn't there.
Yep.
But now
he's made himself into a professional player that's either going to get money in the NBA or somewhere professionally. And Wolf, the transfer from Yale, they're a 1-2 punch, but he's got guards. If they take care of the ball, they're dangerous, and they're the Big Ten champions in the tournament, Michigan.
They were always a dangerous team to me. One of the more dangerous teams we've seen them. They're just a grind-out team as well. Those bigs are a problem, but they're also high basketball IQ. Any Dusty May coach team is going to be making most of the right decisions, especially down the stretch. Even though their guard play and their perimeter game isn't as good as you would think, they still make the plays that they need to. So, especially down the stretch. I mean, we saw what Michigan was able to do to Maryland, going coast to coast. So they're a team that I think is going to be very disruptive. And for Auburn, they're going to have their hands filled. But I think the advantage is still Auburn because of the guard play that Auburn has is far superior than what Michigan has at the table. And at the end of the day, their bigs are going to probably cancel each other out.
Love all the insight. That's the voice of Ari Russell. If you're only hearing us on podcast form, Jason Powers with me, TJ Rives as well, on a Sunday night that has seen Arizona grab the final spot in the Sweet 16. The Wildcats go into the Sweet 16 with a win over the Oregon Ducks. Jason, it was hard fought, 6 of 6 from the foul line in the final 10 seconds. What a comeback for Arizona. Jason.
I like this Tommy Lloyd team. They're tougher than they've been in years past. They're showing some grit. They're not a great defensive team, but they got a little bit. That Awaka kid in the low post is pretty good. So obviously we know they got guard play. So I'm going to be interested to see when they play Duke. Duke's not been in a close game in a while. How does Duke, if this game gets to the 4-minute mark on Thursday, and remember, Arizona's now got to go play Sunday night at midnight, play Thursday night. It's a quick turnaround on the East Coast. So how will that affect Arizona?
They got to get from Seattle to the East Coast and play in 4 nights, correct?
But Ari, how does Duke handle not being in many close games in the ACC? I want to see how that group handles a tight game potentially with Arizona. Didn't they play already early in the year?
They did, and Duke beat them. Duke beat them at Arizona. Yeah.
So they're familiar with each other. Love is also familiar from his North Carolina days as well, and so that's a big time interesting. Dynamic right there. But Love is decided to come back. I mean, obviously he's a little bit too old to be a first round pick, which I could go on for days about.
He signed like 3 NBA contracts in his college career.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, but he today at 29 play. This guy has made big plays in March. And made big shots in March. So that's a
against
great
Duke.
Point.
Against Duke.
So
he was part, let's just elaborate. He was part of the North Carolina team in the 2022 tournament. Ari, you and I were there in the Superdome. They ended Coach K and Duke twice. They beat him forever in his final game in Cameron, with Caleb Love having a big game in that win in the ACC regular season finale. And then they ended them for good, his final game ever, it would appear, in the Superdome in the semifinal. And Caleb Love was good in that game also. And then eventually Kansas won the national title over North Carolina. What a backdrop for the Sweet 16 in Newark that Caleb Love 2 years later is now back. 3 years later is now back with Arizona in the Sweet 16. What about the Big 12 overall? Again, we get Houston, Purdue in Indianapolis, home away from home situation, boys, for
That's
Purdue.
Ridiculous.
We get Arkansas and Texas Tech out in San Francisco. No real advantage on the neutral floor. And then the other 2 fairly new Big 12 teams are BYU playing Alabama in Newark in the East Regional and Arizona playing Duke. But the Big 12 gets 4 teams in. 3 of them are not traditional Big 12 teams, but the conference will still take it. The checks still cash from the NCAA tournament, and the interest is still there. Hey, Jason, a thought on the Big 12?
No, give them credit. Again, I think BYU and Arizona are both very dangerous teams in the East. We know Houston's strength, and obviously with Texas Tech. They got a good matchup with Arkansas. That's a very winnable game with Arkansas if you're Texas Tech. So stock up for the Big 12, stock down for the Big East.
I would say yes. Ari, another thought on the Big 12 before we move off of that on how good they've looked.
Look, I mean, they were kind of smashing in the mouth each week as well, but just not as high of a level as it was in the SEC. But we're seeing that right now. The competition and the athleticism is there. The BYU and Alabama game is really intriguing because that one's going to be played in the high 80s probably. If it's not, then I'd be shocked because both of those teams could really fire up the offense and sometimes forget how to play defense. So, Alabama today Alabama made St. Mary's look like a
YMCA team.
Yeah, I mean, it was just not. The speed and athleticism was just completely different. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, but they're not going to face that against BYU. BYU's got some guys that can move and run.
Jason, I know you love BYU in this spot. You've been saying it now for 4 or 5 days that if BYU gets that win over Wisconsin, look out for them to beat either Alabama or St. Mary's. You love that.
I think they're beating Alabama. I do. I like they got 2 inside players that are good. They're neither of them are great on defense, but I think BYU is a little more disciplined on defense, and they got big guards. They got guys that could be a problem for Sears from a height and perspective with the Turkish guy. Was it Erman or Durman as the point guard? And you got Richie Saunders. They got players that can shoot the ball.
First year coach. It's Mark Young.
Kevin Young.
My mistake.
NBA assistant. He runs a lot of NBA offensive sets.
Interesting that he replaced Mark Pope at BYU, and they get in the Sweet 16. Pope's in the Sweet 16 with Kentucky, so BYU hasn't missed a beat in that regard. But that's going to be fun with Alabama.
They got the number 1 prospect in the country coming to BYU next year.
Yep.
So this program
Dabansa, right? AJ Dabansa, right? The phenom from the Northeast.
Yeah. So this program is in a good spot right now, and they can make it even a better spot if they can knock off the 2 seed in Alabama. I'm not as optimistic that they could, like Jason. But Jason, you've been talking about BYU for months now, so I take your focusing and saying watching them more than I have, but I still think that having that experience from before, especially on this second weekend, and Nate Oates, I think that plays a part. And to be honest with you, Sears hasn't been playing well at all. So he's shooting the ball particularly well of late. So, but he's a guy that can just turn it on in an instant. I mean, he can be just push a button, and all of a sudden he drops 30 on you. So,
and we should also make mention, he's due to break out, and they were in the Final Four last year. The experience matters on that, and several of these players, including Grant Nelson and a couple of the other key pieces, Diabate and others, they played in the Final Four last year, played in the Elite Eight and the Final Four. We should make mention as well, all the number 1s and all the number 2s got through to the Sweet 16. I don't know when the last time that happened.
St. John.
There you go. Not even all the number 1s and all the number 2s got in. It's rare that the chalk all makes their way there without the upsets. Arkansas did take down St. John's. Thank you for the correction on that. I did also see, again, we'll repeat the stat, that it is the first time ever for 7 teams in a single conference. It's SEC teams that make the Sweet 16. The previous mark is 5 ACC teams, I believe, in the Sweet 16. That's the previous mark. 7 of them make it for the SEC here since the field expanded to 64 and now to 68 teams. Again, some would argue you got 14 teams in. You should have more in. It should be pointed out, Ari, we talk about the Big East all the time. The Big East had 11 teams in the tournament back in 2013? 11 teams, only 2 made the Sweet 16. Right. So it's not as easy as you would think to win a couple of games and get into the next weekend. But that has happened for the SEC teams: Auburn, Ole Miss, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, and Arkansas. that all get in. Did we leave anything else out before we get out of here and put this to bed? Jason Powers?
What is the toughest region left? If I'm looking at the regions, the toughest path to me, I'm going to say the East with Duke, Arizona, Alabama, and BYU. I think three of I could make an argument all four teams could make it, but legitimately three of those teams could go to the final. To me, that's the toughest region for me out of the four that are left.
Ari, a thought on that? Would you agree,
Yeah,
or would you say maybe the South, where it's Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, and Michigan State?
Yeah, that's where I was going to say the South slightly more because of Michigan and because of Michigan State. I just think that now you've got that Michigan team that obviously won the Big Ten tournament, and now Mississippi seems to be rolling along as well.
Hotty toddy, they got the win over Iowa State.
They're like the potty.
They
like
their
party tonight in Oxford.
Oh yeah, at the Grove spring break weekend, still finishing up. Again, Ole Miss with Chris Beard, Padula the guard. They've got some size, and again, it just shows the depth of the SEC because Ole Miss and Arkansas in particular were nowhere near the top rung, the top 5 or 6 teams. Yet they've won a couple of games in this tournament. I know what we need to do, guys, before we depart with our final thoughts. Let's talk about our sponsor, Go Sleeves here. Their kinesiology technology. If you're looking for help, if you're a weekend warrior, basketball player, pickleball player, biker, the knees, the calves ache you, use these therapeutic sleeves for the knees, the calves, for the elbow, for a couple of reasons. They increase blood flow. They help you with recovery and inflammation. We love it with Go Sleeves. And again, they've got some great technology coming out as well for your hamstrings with a special legging and also with an ankle brace. We're watching the video. If you're with us on the video, if you're a biker, if you're a runner, if you're a tennis player, pickleball player, weekend basketball player, Go Sleeves, the kinesiology technology to help you recover. It is go time with Go Sleeves. And we remind you as well to patronize our sponsor, Go Sleeves, with our promo code, GoSleeves.com/TJ. That'll save you something on your Go Sleeves for your knees, your calves, your elbows. If you're a golfer, a pickleball player, you need it for your elbow, etc. We get it at advanced age, playing these sports, Ari and Jason, and for the audience, GoSleeves.com, kinesiology technology. They're proud sponsors of ours on college basketball, coast to coast. Again, we wrap it up with tonight with the power teams that all seem to make it with the exception of St. John's. Again, we should say that all the number 1 seeds are through, but why do I get the feeling not all the number 1 seeds will be in San Antonio? Ari Russell, upsets probably brewing. A thought on that for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 for maybe 1 or 2 of the number 1 seeds?
I don't know, man. Like I think Michigan has the best chance out of everybody. I think at this point to knock off the 1 in this round, in the round of 16. I think that's the best one. So
Purdue will have a home away from home game in Indianapolis with Houston. And if Houston gets by that, they get either Kentucky or Tennessee. What a gauntlet to play Gonzaga and Purdue for sure. And if they get through it, they're playing either Kentucky or Tennessee. Not easy for Houston, for Kelvin Sampson's team, Ari.
No. That's where I just don't see in the round of 16. I just don't see the 1s falling, but I do possibly see that the 1s could face more problems in the Elite 8. That's where, but that's going to be, we'll see. But I just don't see any, like I said, Michigan I think has the best chance from a matchup standpoint of possibly pulling the upset. But I mean, we could sit here and be in San Antonio together, and it's the ones that are there. And I wouldn't be fully shocked.
Since the field expanded to 64 and now 68 teams, there's only been one time when all the 1 seeds got there, and it was in San Antonio. And that year it was Memphis, UCLA, North Carolina, and Kansas. And oh my God, Mario Chalmers hit that 3-point shot for Kansas to tie the game, put it into overtime, and Kansas beat Memphis in the national title game. That's the only time out of 40 years of the field being that all the 1s got there. So the likelihood is all the 1s aren't getting there, but stay tuned. Jason, a final thought on that or anything else before we say goodnight?
Yeah, great. A little bit of a kind of a blase weekend of the 4 days, not a ton of buzzer beaters and all that stuff. So if you're from a totality perspective, kind of been a little chalky so far, but this is what we as basketball fans we want to see the heavyweights play each other in the Sweet 16, Final 8 games. I think we're going to have 4 good regions, and I think we're going to have 16 really good teams capable of getting to San Antonio.
Great stuff tonight, gentlemen. Thank you. And again, if you're listening on podcast, come find what we look like on the social media platforms of college basketball coast to coast, on YouTube, on Facebook, at CBB Coast to Coast as well. We started with 68 teams. We are down to 16. The action resumes Thursday and Friday night in the 4 sites: Newark, Atlanta, Indianapolis, and San Francisco. Thanks to Adam Zagoria, our insider, NJ.com, with us earlier tonight. Ari Russell, my wingman, also hanging out here as part of the coverage. Ari's been with me going all the way back to the SiriusXM days 20 years ago, and then moving forward to TuneIn's coverage, as well as what we're doing here on the platforms of college basketball coast to coast. Find him at Ari Russell. Find Jason Powers at JPO Sports, as you see on the screen, and the Powers on Sports podcast. Boys, have a good night. Thank you for hanging with me. Good stuff, Jason. Thank you, Ari. Great stuff, gentlemen.
Anytime.
All right, there we go. Thank you for watching and listening as well. More later in the week in the preview mode and the recap mode coming up here from college basketball coast to coast. Good night for Sunday.